My name is Morgan Stanley, 36 years old, living in Chicago. I once thought I had a stable marriage after 15 years together. But one ordinary morning in the bathroom, I discovered that the expensive shampoo bottle was nearly empty, even though I had bought it only 2 weeks ago. My wife had been bald since 35. She certainly wasn't using it. So, who had stepped into this house, used even the most intimate things of mine, and then left as if they had never existed? The feeling of realizing traces of another man in your own bathroom. Can you even imagine that? If it were you, would you stay silent and watch or confront it right away? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay with me, because the story I'm about to tell will make you see clearly. Sometimes betrayal begins with the smallest details. Grace was always admired by everyone. With closely cropped salt and pepper hair, thin framed glasses, and a confident half-smile, she embodied the type of woman who had it all. Successful, educated, and according to our friends, living a model marriage with the most thoughtful and reliable husband they had ever met. Cocktail parties, career seminars, company Christmas events. I was always there standing by her side, politely shaking strangers' hands and nodding at the empty compliments everyone knew weren't completely true. I was used to standing next to my wife as if I were a refined accessory, not too striking to outshine her aura, but charming enough that people had to admit she really is lucky. I didn't think it was a role I had ever dreamed of, but it came naturally, as if I was born to fill the space beside a woman like her. A woman who walked into a room with a presence that made others instinctively step aside. We once tried to have children. For years ago, I went through 2 rounds of IVF and 1 miscarriage at 11 weeks. Grace didn't blame me. She stayed silent, held me close, and said one sentence. Maybe it's not the time yet. I thought it was her way of comforting me. But from that moment on, there seemed to be a sheet of frosted glass between us. Clear enough to see each other, but not clear enough to touch the real feelings. We stopped talking about children after that. I learned to redirect paternal instinct into the plants I care for every morning, the blogs I wrote for Grace's clients, the midnight calls with panicked customers drowning in deadlines. I was the one writing the words that made Grace look like she understood clients better than they understood themselves. The one picking every color tone for the new websites, every line of the slogan she read at conferences, the one monitoring every piece of client feedback to fine-tune her personal profile. But I never put my name on anything. I didn't see it as wrong until I started to feel that my wife no longer looked at me the way she once did. I'm not talking about how she no longer brushed her hand lightly against my back when passing by, or how the morning hugs grew weaker, or how dinners grew quieter. I'm talking about her eyes. There were moments I caught her looking at me as if I were a stranger, as if she were trying to remember something about me she had already forgotten. And when she realized I was looking back, she would quickly turn away as if she had been caught doing something wrong. I used to think I was imagining too much. Maybe it was because I'd been working from home too long, stuck in website projects, always emails, accounts, deadlines. I thought maybe I needed a trip, a change. But then came the nights she came home later than usual. "Emergency meeting," she said, loosening her tie without looking at me. I nodded, poured more wine into my glass, then cleared the untouched plates on the dining table. Then the second night, the third. It's quarter and chaos everywhere. But when I tried to ask about specific clients, Grace only mumbled and changed the subject. She no longer shared the little stories from her day. No more jokes about funny new coworkers. No more draft of her speeches for me to edit. The small pieces of her life she once shared now seemed ripped away, kept somewhere I wasn't allowed to step into. Once, I found a spa receipt in a stack of mail on her desk. Services for specialized shampoo, steam treatment, and deep hair therapy at a salon in the Gold Coast area. The payer was Grace. At the exact time she claimed to be meeting the design team. I didn't confront her. I slid the receipt back into the bottom drawer. That night, I noticed a strange perfume lingering on her shirt collar. Not mine, and not from any detergent I had ever used. It was only for a moment, but I remembered it clearly. Then came the towel with a red lipstick stain. I hadn't worn red lipstick since our wedding, and no one had visited the house recently. I began to feel like an audience, watching my own life unfold without knowing when the main character had been replaced. I didn't know exactly what I was facing, but I knew something in this house was no longer right. And for the first time in a long while, I stopped reassuring myself that every marriage fades eventually. I decided to do the one thing I knew better than anyone from my work. I would collect data. Not rushed, not emotional, but precise down to every detail. I had once built a brand that hundreds of thousands of people trusted with image and words. I would do it again, but this time the target wasn't clients. This time, the target was a truth. The camera I chose looked like a scented candle. White porcelain casing, gold rim, blending perfectly with the bathroom colors. No cords, no blinking lights. Fixed directly on the shelf above the sink, facing the mirror. The angle was wide enough to catch the door, the shower, and part of the glass cubicle. It took me nearly 3 days to find the right model. Not too cheap to glitch, not too fancy to attract attention. I had bought 3 others before this one. One had the wrong angle. One had sound but no image. The final one I picked, besides its discreet look, had a motion alert that sent recordings directly to my phone. No one but me knew it existed. The night I installed it, I wiped the bathroom mirror like always, replaced the towels, checked the shampoo and conditioner bottles I had bought from Italy, the kind with bergamot and fermented honey scent, light but long-lasting. I photographed each bottle from multiple angles, marked them with a clear nail polish streak in places no one would notice, both on the bottle and the cap. The moment someone opened them, I would know. Everything was prepared like I was setting up a client photo shoot. Except this time, the subject was someone entering uninvited. I didn't tell anyone. No confiding, no diary. I knew that if I told anyone, even Alex, my best friend from college, I'd only hear the same advice. Are you sure? Don't assume without proof. I didn't want doubt, and I didn't want pity. I needed truth, not sympathy. On Friday morning, I told Grace I had an unexpected trip to meet a new client opening showrooms in the western suburbs. I made an excuse that I'd need to stay overnight to survey the space, take photos, and draft a branding plan. She asked one thing. You sure you're okay? You've been working too hard lately. I smiled. This one's light. I'll use it as a break, a change of air. All right, drive safe then. She leaned in to kiss my cheek, slightly off from the usual spot. I let it be. The cologne she used that morning wasn't the one she usually wore. Stronger, sweeter, the kind of scent I avoided because it gave me headaches. I set my small bag on the back seat, pulled out my phone, and switched on the live stream from the camera. Everything in the bathroom was still. I drove away from our street, turned opposite the highway exit, looped around, and stopped at a cafe less than 2 blocks from our house. I chose a corner table, sat with my back to the street, phone screen right in front of me, my cappuccino cool with time, but I didn't blink. In the first 3 hours, nothing happened. Only the empty room, light filtering through frosted glass, the occasional hum of traffic outside, and the stillness of shadow. I began to doubt myself. Was I overreacting? Could it be I was imagining everything? Maybe Grace really was busy, and I was using loneliness to draw my own script of betrayal. Then my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Bathroom. 2:37 p.m. I tapped the screen. A figure had stepped into frame. Not Grace. A man. Bright blonde hair. Lightly curled at the ends. Wearing an oversized white button-down, the kind that could only be Grace's. Barefoot. A leather purse sat on the sink with that small crown logo I knew well. I had designed the brand identity for that company last year. He turned. His face came clear under the light. I had never met him, but I knew the type, at least a decade younger than me. Skin cared for with medical treatments, a body maintained by gym sessions, and a 1,200-calorie diet. Eyes confident, almost defiant, even though he had no idea he was being watched. Minutes later, he stepped out of frame carrying a white towel, the kind I used every night. He moved through the room at ease, as if he had been there before. He opened the nightstand drawer, pulled out a hand cream I had ordered online last month, unscrewed the lid, rubbed on a thin layer, then smirked at his reflection. Every gesture was so natural. I shivered. This was not his first time in my house. About 15 minutes later, the door opened. Grace walked in holding a shopping bag from a downtown boutique. She set it on the table, went straight to the bed where he was lying, and said in a half-teasing voice, "Your weekend gift." He sat up, his hair still damp from the shower, a few strands clinging to the collar of the shirt he wore. My shirt. Jake. That's the name I heard when Grace leaned down and kissed his cheek. Jake Monroe. I swear no one could ever replace you. Jake giggled, slid his hand across her shoulder. Then, glancing at the mirror, he said, voice sharp and clear, "He has no idea, does he?" She sighed, loosening her tie, shrugging slightly. Morgan's always buried in projects. Besides, he never notices anyway. My heart pounded, but my face stayed frozen cold. Jake pulled the bag open, lifted out a burgundy silk dress. He held it to his chest, twirled in front of the mirror. Beautiful, but you sure he won't find out? Grace laughed. Morgan never opens my closet. Trust me. That sentence hit harder than any kiss. It wasn't physical betrayal. It was contempt. After 15 years together, I had been reduced to the one who never notices. An afterthought in my own home. I kept watching. Jake lay back on the bed, his head resting on her arm, his voice soft but loud enough for the camera. Do you ever think about going public? I don't want to stay in the dark forever. Grace paused a few seconds, then answered, Not yet. He's still useful. He handles all the branding for me. If I drop him now, I'll lose more than I gain. Jake raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. He gave a sly half-smile. Useful. Sounds like you're talking about an employee. Grace laughed with him. My throat closed tight. I thought I'd feel jealous or broken. Instead came a chill like a bucket of ice water poured straight over my heart. To Grace, I wasn't a partner anymore. I replayed the video 3 times, listening closer each time, engraving every word in my head. There was no denying it now. My phone buzzed again. A message from Grace. Work going smoothly. Miss you. I laughed out loud, sharp enough that the waiter nearby glanced at me. He had no idea that blocks away, Grace lay in bed with another man, still texting her husband as though she were the image of loyalty. I shut my phone, leaned back in the chair. All the scattered pieces from the past month snapped into place. The fast-emptying shampoo, the red lipstick stain on the towel, the spa receipt, Grace's evasive eyes. Every one of them had an answer now. Jake Monroe. His name was like a bold ink blot spreading across a fragile page. I didn't know much about him beyond what the camera had captured. But I knew one thing for certain. He had stepped onto my ground, taking not only my wife, but the last shred of peace left in my home. Some men might collapse after seeing this. I didn't. They thought I was invisible. I would turn that invisibility into my greatest weapon. I replayed the footage, saved everything to a private cloud lock with a password only I knew. Then I renamed the file Monroe Evidence 1. I knew this was only the beginning. From the day I held that first video, I never looked at Grace the same again. Every time she walked to the door with her familiar social smile, she looked like an actor rehearsing lines. I didn't speak, didn't confront, didn't show a hint. I chose silence, but it wasn't passive silence. It was the silence of someone watching and recording. At night, when she slept, I opened my laptop, logged into our joint bank account. The transactions glowed like scratches I had never noticed before. Grace still deposited her paycheck regularly, but small withdrawals appeared, repeated weekly, vanishing into another account. At first, a few hundred, then a few thousand. Each time, the note showed only a string of numbers. I traced every mark. Finally, I found a new account under Grace's name, but the contact address wasn't our home. It was a rented mailbox in another neighborhood. She wasn't only cheating. She was setting up an escape, secretly siphoning money away. One afternoon, checking our home mailbox, I found a cream envelope, embossed silver logo, a luxury furniture store I knew well. I had consulted branding for them 5 years ago. Recipient, Jake Monroe, but the sender's address was our house. I heard a car pull into the street. His name glared up at me from the same box I opened every morning. I carried the envelope inside, set it on the dining table. My heart pounded, not from shock, but from the clarity of the picture forming. That night, Grace came home late. She hung up her suit jacket, pulled off her tie, went straight to the fridge for a beer. I slid the envelope across the table, voice steady. This was delivered by mistake. Addressed to Jake Monroe, but sent here. She froze, eyes flickering before softening. Must be a post office mix-up. I'll take it back. I smiled lightly, nodded, and pulled the envelope back. No need. I'll hold on to it. Return it tomorrow. Her eyes blinked fast, calculating. Then she forced a laugh, wrapped an arm around me. You're always so thoughtful. I let it pass, but inside another piece locked into place. The next day, when she left, I opened the envelope. Inside was a receipt for an Italian sofa set, $11,000. Buyer, Grace Cartwright. Recipient, Jake Monroe. Delivery address, a luxury condo recently opened by the riverfront. A new condo, new furniture, a hidden bank account, a younger lover. All of it painted a future where I did not exist. I scanned the invoice, stored in a secure folder, took photos, saved them to the cloud. Each piece of evidence stacked like bricks, building the wall to protect myself. In the weeks that followed, I uncovered more bills from fine restaurants we had never visited. Hotel receipts for nights matching her late work excuses. Perfume purchases delivered to our house, but billed under Grace's name. One evening, as we sat in the living room, Grace with her laptop open, I pretended to bring her tea. Glancing down, I caught the screen. Not an architecture project, a legal forum. The thread title, Dividing Assets and Divorce. How to keep the majority when your spouse has no steady income. She closed the screen the instant she saw my eyes flicker toward it. A client asked me to look it up. I nodded, smiling faintly, but inside I knew she was no longer hiding with finesse. She had gone too far to turn back. From that day, I changed the way I observed, no longer noticing the half-empty shampoo bottles or the lipstick stains. I tracked the numbers, the receipts, the letters that conveniently arrived at the wrong address. Every small detail was another piece of evidence I carefully placed into a file on my computer. She thought I was still the quiet figure in the corner, the one who never paid attention. But I knew better. What hides in the dark can either shield or consume everything. I was no longer the husband waiting for his wife to come home and trusting her brief explanations. I was becoming the watcher, the collector, the recorder, and one day, those very details she dismissed would be the ones that pulled them both down. 3 months later, I had gathered enough evidence to fill a binder. Not once did I raise my voice, nor did I accuse her outright. Grace believed she still controlled the narrative, that I was too naive to see what stood behind her hollow smiles. One Friday morning, she left early for a conference in Milwaukee. Her suitcase was packed neatly by the door the night before. When she kissed my cheek goodbye, her lips barely brushed mine, like the ritual had lost its script. An hour after she drove off, I followed. I didn't go to Milwaukee. I drove to the address listed on the furniture invoice, the riverfront condo. The building's glass facade shimmered in the sun. Through the lobby window, I could see the delivery truck unloading another box marked with her name. I waited until the movers left, then walked into the leasing office. The receptionist smiled politely. "Good morning. How can I help you?" I held up a document with Grace's name. I'm helping her move in. She said the contract might need an additional signature. She glanced at the file, nodded, and tapped her keyboard. "Yes, Ms. Cartwright's lease started 2 weeks ago. Unit 704. My pulse thudded quietly in my ears. She handed me a visitor badge. "Take the elevator to the 7th floor." I rode up in silence. When the door slid open, the air smelled faintly of new paint and jasmine. Unit 704's door was half open. Boxes inside, curtains drawn halfway. I stepped in. On the marble counter, a half-empty wine bottle, 2 glasses, and a shirt draped over a chair. My shirt, the one I'd been searching for weeks ago. In the corner stood a framed photo of Grace and Jake, taken on a hiking trail I'd suggested years before. Her smile looked brighter there than it had been in our house for months. I didn't touch anything. I just looked, memorized, and left. Outside, I sent the footage from hidden cameras and every screenshot of her transactions to a secure lawyer's email, time-stamped and organized. Then I called a locksmith I knew from an old project. Change every lock in my house, I said. Today. When Grace returned 2 days later, she stood on the porch, suitcase beside her, confusion spreading across her face. She rang the bell twice. When I opened the door, she smiled cautiously. Why are the locks changed? I handed her a sealed envelope. Inside, you'll find everything you've been hiding, and a copy has already gone to my lawyer. She went pale. Morgan, I can explain. No, I interrupted quietly. You already did, every night to someone else. She looked down, realizing I knew everything. Her hand trembled slightly as she gripped the handle of her suitcase. I stepped aside, letting her collect a few clothes, her laptop, and a folder from a desk. When she turned toward me, her lips parted as if to speak. But I didn't give her that chance. Grace, I said, calm but cold, you once said I never noticed anything. You were right. I didn't until now. Her eyes glistened. For a second, she almost looked like the woman I once loved. Then she turned away, walked out the door, and didn't look back. The silence that followed wasn't painful. It was clean. Over the next few weeks, the divorce papers processed smoothly. Grace didn't contest. She knew she couldn't. Jake Monroe disappeared from her social pages soon after. Rumor had it that the condo lease was canceled before its second month. When everything finalized, I packed a small bag and left Chicago. The city where everything fell apart no longer felt like home. I drove south until the skyline gave way to mountains. In Asheville, North Carolina, I found a small house on the edge of the Blue Ridge. A workshop stood behind it, a quiet space filled with the scent of cedar and new beginnings. Every morning, I'd walk down a river, let the cold air hit my face, and remind myself what survival truly meant. Revenge, I learned, isn't always loud or destructive. Sometimes it's silence, the kind that lets your absence echo louder than your anger ever could. Grace once said, I never noticed anything. Now, I notice everything. The weight of peace, the clarity of solitude, the sound of my own name unbroken by lies. And that is how Morgan Stanley rebuilt his life. Not through rage, not through forgiveness, but through boundaries so firm that no betrayal could ever cross them again.